The second item that we have on the agenda is actually a discussion item, and the conversation is regarding the implementation of the Social Justice and Black History Month, not Black History Month, Black History curriculum. So I want to start off just by saying that the Cherry Hill African American Culture Club on Friday, June 19th, organized a march for social justice and education. And I would like to highlight that that was actually featured in a local news publication highlighting the wonderful work of the students of Cherry Hill Public Schools. That march was actually titled "Learning Begins Now, Stop the Ignorance." It was a peaceful march from the Whole Foods Shopping Center at Ellisburg Shopping Center to the Cherry Hill Public Library. And one of the things that this group of students really highlighted was the importance of educating the community on the critical importance of teaching Black history. And they spoke specifically to the teaching of Black history, not from a marginalized and oppressive state, but to highlight the relevance, beauty, and power of Black history and the infusion of Black history across our curriculum. One of the things that also came from this dialogue and this march was a request for the board to have a conversation regarding a mandatory African American Studies course to fulfill the high school graduation requirement from Cherry Hill Public Schools. I do want to inform the board that we do currently have an African American Studies course offered at both high schools. The course is offered for dual credit through Stockton University and is open for all students to be able to participate. So again, the first part of my presentation is to start the conversation with the Board of Education regarding the requirement for all students to have to take a high school African American Studies course in order to be able to fulfill the Cherry Hill Public Schools graduation requirement. The other piece that I will be presenting this evening is just a very short update on where we are in regards to updating our curriculum to include the infusion of Black history, as well as our work regarding a social justice course and or the infusion of social justice within our curriculum. So we have a wonderful partnership with Scholastic, and one of their authors, Dr. Goldie Muhammad, is working with districts as a leader in this field and a leader in this work to make sure that school-based curricula is reflective of Black history and speaks to a social justice component. So we are looking to partner with her to ensure that we are doing this across our entire curriculum. And when we talk about curriculum revisions and we talk about the infusion of Black history, we're not just talking about in the social studies classes. We're talking about our students learning about people of color who have done amazing things across all content areas. Some names that I would just throw out to you are Marie Daly. She's the first African American woman to earn a PhD in chemistry. What an excellent role model for our students to be able to see that women of color are able to achieve such great status. We want our students to learn about Benjamin Banneker in mathematics. We want our students to learn about Catherine Jones, and when they're reading Hidden Figures, make the connection to her being a mathematician as well as a scientist. We want our students to learn about Charles Drew, who was the inventor of the blood bank. You know, we need to start to think outside of the current figures in history that our students learn about over and over again. So we want to broaden our spectrum that we expose our students to. So in addition to working with hopefully Dr. Muhammad through Scholastic, we are also looking to continue our work with the University of Pennsylvania. We have worked extensively with Dr. Jessica Whitelaw in writing critical literacy units for text that our students are reading in their ELA classes. We have also purchased numerous book collections to support the diversity of literature across all of our content areas. So again, I just wanted to give a brief update. I will say that we did post for a social justice curriculum committee for social studies, and then we posted again for just a social studies, just for a social justice curriculum committee that will address all content areas. Those postings will be closing in the coming days, and we are looking to formalize both of those committees and to begin our work. There will be representation across the K-12 spectrum. And I'm excited to begin the work. Earlier in the meeting, I heard, I believe, Mr. Ovadia say, we're at a time of seismic disruption. And I think that right now, based on what is going on in the world, we really need to be listening to what our students are saying to us and what our students are asking for. And the peaceful protest that they organized on June 19th really helped to capture and to frame this conversation for us as adults in the district. And I hope that some of them are listening to know that we are actually listening to what they have voiced to us and that we are looking to make some significant changes within Cherry Hill Public Schools. So I present all of that to you. And I guess at this time, Mrs. Matlack, if you would like to go around for questions and then to lead the conversation or discussion regarding the high school graduation requirement of all students from Cherry Hill Public Schools having to take an African American Studies course. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let's start with the discussion, your first item, which was the graduation requirement of the course. And Mrs. Seidel, you have the board list, and maybe you could go around and ask everybody so that I don't inadvertently skip over somebody.
Absolutely. So Mrs. Matlack, I'll start with you as the chair.
Mrs. Seidel, I'm sorry, and Mrs. Matlack, can we also include, I know we're having the conversation regarding the African American Studies course as high school graduation requirement and the social justice work, but I just want to ensure that the board members know that this is also their opportunity to talk about the nursing standing orders if there are any questions regarding that.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So, okay, so I will start us off. I don't have any questions about the standing nurses orders. So we can go to the next one. The graduation requirement of the Black History course, I think, is a tremendous idea. I would just like to, ask some logistical questions regarding adding a requirement to our students' schedules, along with the state requirements in order to graduate. So I would just like to see a breakdown of, what that does for our students' schedules and the time frame and the amount of credits that we'd be looking at adding to a requirement for the students. But I think that is absolutely something that we should consider. I'm really, really pleased that we are forming these committees to look at the social justice component throughout our K-12 curriculum. To infuse it throughout the curriculum and not just have it as a part of a social studies course or a unit, really does exactly what we need to do, and that is infuse it as a part of our curriculum, because it's a part of all of us and all of our lives and all of our futures. So, I'm really pleased and excited that we're moving ahead with that. And as the work moves along, I'm sure we'll have other questions and suggestions or concerns, but for now, I'm pleased to see that work is moving forward. So, Mrs. Seidel.
Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. And now I'll go to the other committee members on CNI first. Ms. Friedel.
Thank you. I don't have any questions about the nursing standing orders, and I really don't per se have any questions. I agree with Mrs. Matlack. That was my question about additional requirements and how they would be fit in. Not opposed to the requirement, just want to make sure that we're not putting more on our students than they can manage. Also, obviously, a requirement to take a class in high school is a good thing, but integrating more of American history throughout our elementary, middle schools, and high schools is critical. I'm not an advocate of months, African American month, this month, that month. We really should be integrating all of those items throughout the course of the year and the years. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Friedel. Mrs. Arroyo?
I like the idea of creating that requirement, but I was hoping to kind of push back on the conversation to have it something extended outside of just of high school, that if there's a way to implement this in elementary and middle school, and I don't know if we've had that discussion or if that's come up, but I think it's something that if you're going to move forward on this and maybe to add that conversation along with the social justice curriculum, if this is the direction the district is going, and we're really listening to the community and to what the students are saying. And I'm hearing and taking the lead from the students that have presented their voice and their goals for their own future in this conversation. So I'm hoping that at younger ages we can implement some of this curriculum so that conversation then helps create acceptance, moving beyond just tolerance in our community, and understanding and developing a better conversation and robust community around equity and diversity.
Mrs. Matlack, can I respond to that? Just because if we were in committee, I would be responding to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to respond to things as we go through. Yes.
Okay. So, Mrs. Arroyo, you are absolutely correct, and I wholeheartedly agree with your comments. We are implementing this work across the K-12 spectrum. Actually, there was work done today and across the past couple days with the literacy teacher coaches at the elementary level, revising much of the Amistad curriculum lessons that we currently have in district. So as we look at this, we're not just looking at this as students should have exposure to tolerance and diversity and issues of equity and issues of social justice when they enter into our high schools. We're looking at this from the perspective that students should be knowing what our expectations are in regards to tolerance and Black history and equity from the moment they walk into Cherry Hill Public Schools doors. So that work will be starting in kindergarten.
That's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Mahan. I don't have any questions, additional questions to what my colleagues on the committee already asked. Mine were similar. My comments were similar, so I'll open it up now to the rest of the board members. Mrs. Neary.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Mahan, this is fantastic. I'm so pleased to hear this. With regard to the African American Studies as a graduation requirement, I don't have an issue with that. And if there's concern regarding how that impacts other requirements and such, is there the ability to then at a future meeting look at that so we could prioritize? Because I think this is incredibly important and would be willing to look at that if that is a concern.
So, Mrs. Neary, absolutely. I think I heard Dr. Malash. I was starting to take a tally, but I believe he said at least 65 times tonight that our return to school plan was in draft form. And I will say for, all the board members, as well as for everyone listening, that this is just our initial conversation to make sure that all the board members are on the same page and to get a pulse of the direction in which we should be going. So we can absolutely continue the conversation at our next committee meeting. And all of the questions that you have asked me in regards to how will this fit into the graduation requirements, what will the course look like, I will be able to more appropriately answer after after we have this initial conversation and discussion and start to think about what our next steps will look like.
No, that's great. This is important. It should be there. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Neary. Mrs. Tong? I know she's been having technical difficulties tonight. Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, I'm really excited about this this idea, and I really believe that it is. I look at it from a number of different standpoints, because a lot of times, the only view many people see of African Americans that come from the TV, and a lot of times it's not always the most positive view. So I look at this as from many different levels, especially when you're talking about infusing African American history throughout the curriculum from kindergarten through K, because it allows not only the African American students to see figures that they can admire and look up to and say they can aspire to imitate. It also helps everyone see the contributions that African Americans have made, and just really see it from a whole different light, oftentimes contrary to what may be published in popular media, etc. So I think it's a really excellent idea from that perspective. I definitely support the idea of having it also as a requirement for graduation. I'm sure, like if we look at all the various requirements, it could be a substitute for maybe one of the other requirements. I'm not sure what the social studies or what kind of requirements are there for history, etc. But I'm definitely excited about it, and I definitely support it. And I think it's just a great step to really help reshape people's images of themselves, as well as the community as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Mrs. Schultz?
Yep. I don't have any additional questions. Other members have already kind of asked about just the workload, and I would echo everyone's sentiments about just the excitement of being able to offer the classes. And I think it just really speaks to one of our board goals of purpose and passion. So I'm really excited to just see future updates on this and where this takes us. So thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Abadia?
Yes, thank you. No, I think some great comments from the board. For me, echoing a couple things, I love that this is a student movement. And I was actually revisiting some of the articles around the Juneteenth March, and that is awesome that they've kind of used their voice with some very specific recommendations for very specific groups, among them us. Couple questions. I'm imagining it isn't decided, but I know we have this dual credit course. Are we talking about broadening that course or creating potentially an augmented course, a different course? Are we going to look at that, and then who looks at that? The teacher load, in terms of once it becomes from elective to mandatory, we need additional teachers. Is that something we could fill with existing? Would we be looking for additional specialties? Is it a foregone conclusion that this is a high school course? I realize it's high school students talking about it, but are we sure there wouldn't be additional value to this being a course earlier in the academic journey? And again, kind of who looks at that? I know the one I'm familiar with that I've heard the most about is the middle level committee and their recommendations that we discussed at length earlier this year. But what is there going to be kind of a task force to move this forward? And I think it's exciting to move it forward, and absolutely should be. Two things I'm going to do as a guest of this committee, because I generally am not on this committee, is I'd love to see the social justice postings that are out there. I think it's very cool that we're proceeding down that path. I'd also be curious, again, as a guest of the committee, about dual credit, which was kind of mentioned on the elective level. I think college affordability is like a continuing interesting topic, and I'd love to kind of see more on the C&I side of the house in terms of, how far our students can get in that dual credit world. And I am excited that nurse standing orders, despite seismic shifts in the world, are proceeding, and all the work that goes into that. I appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So in regards to dual credit, we have a very robust dual credit program where we partner with several universities to provide options for our students. In the high school level, a student could in essence graduate Cherry Hill Public Schools with upwards of 12 to 16 credits completed at the college level if they take dual credit. So I can share more information with you regarding dual credit, Mr. Vadia. The social justice postings are internal postings that we post similar to any other teaching positions. They are curriculum writing positions. And I can tell you that posting of curriculum writing positions is something that's done in the district often. The difference in the postings that were initiated for this work, they speak directly to issues of equity. They speak directly to understanding the social justice lens and the movement that is currently happening across our country. It speaks to specific authors that the participants should be familiar with and understanding that we are really looking at anti-racist work and abolitionist teaching from a perspective of highlighting the work of African Americans across the curriculum. And I think the most important piece is that this is not just in history, but that this is across all content areas and infused across the entire academic day for our students. So that is how this particular posting looks very different. And one of the reasons why we use different language and we're very direct with how the posting was is because if we continue to post our curriculum writing in the same way, we will continue to get the same results. So we are looking for different results at this time, and we are looking to make some significant changes across our curriculum. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that the individuals who are signing up to participate in this work understand what the expectations are before they enter into the conversation, because there will be some difficult conversations, there will be some direct conversations, and there will be some, I'm sure, community and district pushback. And we have to be willing to engage in that controversial dialogue to benefit the students of Cherry Hill Public Schools. So that's how it's different.
And Farah, we can share that posting. I can share that posting with the board on Thursday in the memo.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Malash. We really have discussed this as a high school level course. We can absolutely continue the conversation across the spectrum, but I think our focus at this point was for it to be at the high school level. And the last question, you had two other questions regarding teacher load. We would not know the impact of teacher load until we looked at the schedules and implemented this at the high school level. We will be able to do a temporary mock-up for say to provide that to the board. And in regards to the course and having it an augmented course, we are looking to include the social justice perspective into the coursework. All of the courses that are dual credit have to be vetted by the institution that is providing the dual credit. So we would be going back to Stockton University and saying to them, this is the course that we have. This is the way we would like to adapt the course. Are you still willing to provide dual credit based on what we have designed? So we are looking somewhat for a hybrid of a course per se, but we are looking to maintain that dual credit opportunity for students. So I think I've answered all of yours. You're welcome.
Can I ask?
Mr. Vadia. Or was that Mr. Goodwin?
That was Mr. Goodwin.
Mr. Goodwin, go ahead.
Just one follow-up. One thing that I did want to just note is that in terms of in terms of academic levels, math, science, etc., I think it is important to make kind of highlight these kind of things, kind of achievements, etc., at the 5th grade, 6th grade level, because that's the point in time when pretty much students begin to go down a track that is very difficult for them to go higher if they start at a certain level. So at a lower level, it's more difficult for them to go to a higher level. So I think just the idea of promoting this type of curriculum and helping students see other figures that have been able to do great things and achieve great things, it's really important that the fifth graders and people at those levels can see that and be inspired to what kind of things they could possibly do and pursue higher levels of course load, et cetera, at that point in time.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
Mrs. Goodwin. Mrs. Matlock, do you have any closing remarks or follow-up?
No, I think everybody said it well. Thank you, Dr. Mahan, for all that information and for looking into it. We look forward to continuing the discussion at our August committee meetings.
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
The discussion will continue.
Thank you.